everyone, welcome to the channel. This is Elle, and I haven't uploaded anything in a while. If you are not new here, welcome back. Hello, and thank you so much for being here today. So, I haven't uploaded nor recorded anything from my current series, A Cup with Elle. I started writing something. I wrote a podcast episode, but it deals with a very heavy subject. I started writing it, actually kind of cried for 2 hours, and then I was bummed for the next 3 days. And yeah, very low energy after that. But today I am back and I'm starting with something new. I'm not 100% sold yet if I will do this in the long run. I definitely would want to keep continuing my current series, A Cup with Elle, and I will return to that at some point. I'm just waiting for, I guess, the motivation. Not so much motivation, but more like for me to recover some energy, some emotional energy until I'm ready again. So yeah, it's a very vulnerable episode, and if you're not new here, you know that about me, at least, that I'm not that comfortable with being vulnerable. So yeah, but recently I've been learning that being in that space, allowing yourself to be honest with what you truly feel, with what you truly think, is healthy, as long as I guess it's not overkill or anything. So yeah. So for today, I am reading a book. It's really just that, me reading a book and recording while I read it, and I guess react to it, depends on how it goes. But for today, I have this book, Calm the F Down by Sarah Knight. So, a little story behind this. So, 2 years ago, I started dating, and dated a few people, I guess. And until I decided, okay, I'm gonna date this one guy exclusively. And we're still together, so more than 2 years now. So, a year for us. So, there's that. And so one of the guys, one of the people I dated, borrowed a book from me. It was my first dive into Sarah Knight's work. It was Get Your Shit Together. So yeah, that it was a good book. It's self-help ish type of book. As she says, it's not your typical self-help book. It's more like a no holds barred type of book. Like, hey, look, someone needs to tell you this, and you're picking up this book because you feel like someone has to tell it to you straight. So he has a series of books, and so far, at least at the point where, at the time that I picked up this book, there's already four in her series. And going back to the first book that I got, I left it with one of the guys that I dated, I guess. So yeah, he asked me out again, and then I told him, kind of done with the dating scene, sort of. And I told him, yes, you can keep the book that I lent you. And after that, I went back to the bookstore, decided to pick something else by Sarah Knight. So that's a little backstory about why I have this book. So without further ado, let's just get into reading this one. It's only been less than a week, or a little more than a week, but I feel like I'm very new to this again, and I'm super self-conscious, and I don't know what I'm saying, and just rambling. I don't know. So here's the book, Calm the F Down: How to Control What You Can and Accept What You Can't, so you can stop freaking out and get on with your life, by the lovely Sarah Knight. I haven't actually finished this book, but it's a good read, and I decided I'm going to read it again from the beginning and maybe share it with you. So, page 3. A note on the title: this is a book about anxiety, from the white noise of what ifs to the white hot terror of a full blown crisis. As such, you'd be forgiven for thinking I'm the world's biggest asshole for titling it as I have, since everyone knows that the first entry on a long list of unhelpful things to say to a person experiencing anxiety is calm the F down. Indeed, when I'm upset and somebody tells me to calm down, I want to murder them in a swift and decisive fashion. So I see where you'd be coming from. But this is also a book about problems, we've all got them, and calming down is exactly what you need to do if you want to solve those problems. It is what it is. So, if it keeps you from wanting to murder the messenger, know that in these pages I'm saying calm the F down the same way I said get your shit together in the New York Times bestseller of the same name. Not to shame or criticize you, but to offer motivation and encouragement. Isn't that something that we all need? I promise that's all I'm going for, and that I'm not the world's biggest asshole. The honor belongs to whoever invented the vuvuzela. We cool? Excellent. I'm not sure what the vuvuzela is. I should probably look it up, but I'll look that up later when I'm done recording. One more thing before we dive into all of that anxiety reducing, problem solving goodness. I understand the difference between anxiety, the mental illness, and anxiety, the temporary state of mind. I understand it because I myself happen to possess a diagnosis of generalized anxiety and panic disorder. Right? What you know, folks. So, although a profanity riddled self help book is no substitute for professional medical care, if you picked up Calm the F Down because you're perennially, clinically anxious like me, in it you will find plenty of tips, tricks, and techniques to help you manage that shit, which will allow you to move on to the business of solving the problems that are feeding your anxiety in the first place. But maybe you don't have, or don't realize you have, or aren't ready to admit you have anxiety, the mental illness. But who knows, if you're someone who picked up this book, then maybe you are ready to admit it. Maybe you just get temporarily anxious with when the situation demands it. See the white hot terror of a full-blown crisis. Never fear, Calm the F Down will provide you with ample calamity management tools for stressful times, plus maybe some tips, tricks, and techniques for dealing with the thing you don't realize or aren't ready to admit you have. Just saying. Page 5, Introduction. So I realized that reading and adding my comments, I can't really tell when I'm doing that, but yeah. Starting with page 5, I'd like to kick things off with a few questions. How many times a day do you ask yourself, what if? As in, what if X happens? What if Y goes wrong? What if Z doesn't turn out like I want, need, expect it to? How much time do you spend worrying about something that hasn't happened yet? Or about something that not only hasn't happened, but probably won't? Lastly, how many hours have you wasted freaking out about something that has already happened, or avoiding it as a quiet panic infests your soul instead of just dealing with it? It's okay to be honest. I'm not trying to shame you. In fact, I'll go first. My answer is too many, too much, and a lot. I assume yours is too, because if the answer is never, none, and zero, then you have no reason to be reading this book. Nor, I might add, the hard-won qualifications to have written it. Well, I come bearing good news. When we're finished, the next time you calm down with a case of the what-ifs, and whether they remain theoretical anxieties or turn into real-life problems that need solving, instead of worrying yourself into a panic attack, crying the day away, punching a wall, or avoiding things until they get even worse, you'll have learned to replace the open-ended nature of that unproductive question with one that's more logical, realistic, and actionable. Okay, now what? Yeah, I really should be reading this book. Then you'll deal with it, whatever it is. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, we start with the basics. Shit happens. Boy, does it. And when I think about all the shit that could or probably will happen to me on any given day, I'm reminded of a lyric from departed musical genius and spiritual gangsta, the one and only Prince, R.I.P. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. So, a little something about me, Elle, not Sarah Knight. I don't think I've ever heard a song by Prince. I've only been introduced to him recently after his passing, but yeah, never really followed his music. Going back to the book, the purple one had suspect opinions about a lot of things. Among them, religion, tasteful fabrics, and age appropriate relationships. But in this regard, he was spot on. Each morning that we wake up and lurch across this rotating time bomb called Earth, our baseline goal is to get through the day. Some of us are angling for more, like success, a bit of relaxation, or a kind word from a loved one. Others are just hoping not to get arrested for treason. Well, every day, some of us are hoping someone else gets arrested for treason. And though each 24-hour cycle brings the potential for good things to happen, your loan gets approved, your girlfriend proposes, your stocks match, there's also the chance that the big steaming file of shit will land in your lap. Your house could get repossessed, your girlfriend might break up with you, your socks may become woolly receptacles for cat vomit, not to mention the potential for earthquakes, tornadoes, military coups, nuclear accidents, the worldwide output falling to record lows, and all manner of disasters that could easily strike anytime and really F up your shit. Especially the wine thing. I don't drink, but I kinda get people who do. That's just how life works. Prince knew it, you know it, and that is literally all you and Prince have in common. Sad. So here's another question for you. When shit happens, how do you react? Elevator music. Do you freeze or do you freak out? Do you lock the bathroom door and cry or do you howl at the sky with rage? Personally, I've been known to pretend shit is not happening, bury my head in the pillow and stick my ass in the air in a move I call ostriching. Unfortunately, while these coping mechanisms can be comforting, none are especially productive, and I say that having invented one of them. Eventually, you have to stop freaking out and start dealing with your shit, and shocker, it's hard to make decisions and solve problems when you're panicking or sobbing or shouting or when all the blood is rushing to your head. Which is why what you really need to do, first and foremost, is calm down. Yes, you. If you're having an A-plus day, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and all is right with your minuscule slice of rotating time bomb, you probably don't need to calm down. Congrats. Go outside, enjoy. Things will turn to shit soon enough, and this book will be waiting. We have all been there. I simply maintain that most of us could learn how to handle it better. Related, most of us also have a friend, relative, or partner whose inevitable reaction to our every crisis is, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." Or worse, "Aw, it's not so bad." And that I call bullshit. Well-meaning platitudes are easy to offer for someone with no skin in the game. In this book, we'll be dealing in reality, not nicety. The truth is, yes, sometimes things will be okay. You pass the test, the tumor comes back benign, Linda returns your text. But sometimes they won't. Investments go south, friendships fall away, in an election of monumental consequence, millions of people cast their vote for an ingrown toenail in a cheap red hat. Hello. Not gonna name drop that politician. In some cases, it's really not so bad and you are overreacting. You've built an imagined crisis up in your head and let it feed your anxiety like a mogwai after dark. If you've seen Gremlins, you know how this ends. But in other cases, it's real bad, bro. And you're underreacting. You're like that cartoon dog who sits at the table drinking coffee while the house burns down and around him thinking, it's fine, this is fine. And sure, by saying everything's going to be okay, your friend, relative, partner is probably just trying to help you, but whether you're making a Taj Mahal out of a teepee or ignoring a problem for so long that it sets your metaphorical house on fire, I'm actually going to help you. That's just how I roll. Thus begins your education in calming the F down. Lesson number 1. Merely believing that things will be okay or aren't so bad may make you feel better in the moment, but it won't solve the problem. And a lot of times it doesn't even feel good in the moment. And it feels like you're being condescended to by the happy industrial complex. Don't get me started. Either way, it doesn't change a goddamn thing. Lesson number 2. When shit happens, circumstances are what they are. Tires are flat, wrists are broken, files are deleted, hamsters are dead. You may be frustrated, anxious, hurt, angry, or sad, but you are right there in the thick of it, and the only thing you can control in the equation is you and your reaction. Lesson number 3. To survive and thrive in these moments, you need to acknowledge what has happened, accept the parts that you can't control, and address the parts you can. Acknowledge, accept, address. For that last one, have you heard of the Serenity Prayer? You know, the one about accepting the things you cannot change and having the wisdom to know the difference? Calm the F Down is essentially a blasphemous, long-form version of that, with flowcharts and stuff. So yeah, if you're in this channel, I probably won't be adding flowcharts because I can't actually edit. Yeah. If you're into that sort of thing, we're going to get along just fine. Oh wait, but I can add them in the description box. As long as I'm not violating copyright laws, I will upload the flowcharts from this book in the description box below. Continuing on with page 11. What me worry? I'm guessing that if you came to this book for guidance, then worrying about shit either before or after it happens is a problem for you. So here's a mini lesson. Worrying has two separate but related meanings. In addition to the act of anxiously flirting about one's problems, worrying also means constantly fiddling with something, rubbing at it, tearing it open, and making it worse. It's like noticing that your sweater has a dangling thread, maybe the beginnings of a hole, and it's natural to want to pull on it. You're getting a feeling for the problem, measuring its potential impact. How bad is it already? What can I do about it? But if you keep pulling and then tugging, yanking, and fiddling instead of taking action to fix it, suddenly you're down a whole sleeve, you're freaking out, and both your state of mind and your sweater are in tatters. I've seen smaller piles of yarn at the cat cafe. When you get into this state of mind, you're not just worried about something, you're actually worrying it. And in both senses, worrying makes the problem worse. This series of unfortunate events applies across the board, from worries that bring on low-level anxiety to those that precede full-bore freakouts. Some of that anxiety and freaking out is warranted, like, what if my car runs out of gas in the middle of a dark desert highway? But some of it isn't. Like, what if Linda is mad at me? I know she saw that text I sent yesterday and she hasn't replied. Why haven't you replied, Linda? Luckily, I'm going to show you how to get a handle on all of your worries, how to accept the ones you can't control, and how to act in a productive way on the ones you can. I call it the no worries method. It's based on the same concept that anchors all of my work, mental decluttering, and it has 2 steps. Step 1, calm the F down. Step 2, deal with it. Sounds promising now? Or does it sound overly reductive and like it couldn't possibly help you in any way? I hear that, but overly reductive yet extremely helpful is kind of my thing. So maybe give it another page or 2 before you decide. For now, let's circle back to those questions you already admitted you can't stop asking yourself. What if X happens? What if Y goes wrong? What if Z doesn't turn out like I want, need, expect it to? Expect it to. The X you're worried about could be anything from getting your period on a first date to the untimely death of a loved one. Y could be your dissertation defense or the landing gear on your connecting flight to Milwaukee. Z might be a job interview, a driving test, or the rather large wager you placed on the latest royal baby name. It's a 4,000-pound shame they didn't go with Gary, I know. In the end, it doesn't matter precisely what your what ifs are, only that they exist and they're occupying some, a lot, too much of your mental space on any given day, unraveling your metaphorical sweater bit by bit. You would therefore do well to note the following. Lesson number 4. A bunch of this shit is unlikely to happen at all. Lesson number 5. You can prevent some of it and mitigate the effects of some of the rest. Lesson number 6. Some of it is and has always been completely out of your hands and locked in the steely grip of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. You need to take your licks, learn the lesson, and let this one go. And hey, no judgments. I'm right there with you. Hence the hard-won qualifications to have written this book. For most of my life, I've been a champion warrior. What ifs swirl inside my skull like minnows on a meth bender. I fret about shit that hasn't happened. I obsess over shit that may or may not happen. And when stuff does happen, I possess an astounding capacity for freaking out about it. But over the last few years, I found ways to keep that stuff to a minimum. I'm not completely worry-free, but I have become less anxious and am no longer, shall we say, paralyzed by dread and or driven to the brink of madness by unmet expectations and a boiling sense of injustice. It's an improvement. I'm amazed at how good it feels and how much I've been able to accomplish with a relatively simple change in mindset, accepting the things I can't control. And yes, at this point, I am changing some of the curse words because I'm not that comfortable using them. So, accepting the things I can't control, which allows me to focus on dealing with the stuff I can control, leaving me better equipped to make decisions and solve problems both in the moment and after the fact, and even to prevent some of them from happening in the first place. Nifty. I've learned how to stop dwelling on unlikely outcomes in favor of acting to create more likely ones, how to plow forward rather than agonize backward, and crucially, how to separate my anxiety about what might occur from the act of handling it when it does occur. You can learn to do all of that too. Calm the F down will help you stop freaking out about shit you can't control and enable yourself to make rational decisions so you can solve problems instead of making them worse. Here's what that process looked like for me during the last few years and a little taste of how it can work for you. I can't deal with this shit. Or can I? The beginnings of my change in mindset happened to coincide with the change of location when my husband and I moved from bustling Brooklyn, New York to a tranquil fishing village on the north coast of the Dominican Republic. I know, shut the F up, right? But I swear, this isn't a story about idyllic, sun-drenched days full of Coco Locos and aquamarine vistas. I do enjoy those, but the primary benefit of living where I do is that it has forced me, like aquamarine waterboarded me, to calm down. During the previous 16 years in New York, I'd had a lot going on. I climbed the corporate ladder, planned and executed a wedding, bought a real estate, and orchestrated the aforementioned move to the Dominican Republic. I was always good at getting stuff done, yes, but I was not especially calm while doing it. And especially not calm means total effing lunatic. And when anything happened to alter the course of my carefully cultivated expectations, Well, forget about it. You might think that a high functioning, high achieving, highly organized person would be able to adjust if the situation demanded it. But back then, I couldn't deviate from the plan without experiencing a major freakout, such as when a downpour on the day of my husband's 30th birthday picnic sent me into a fit of goodbye, cruel world. In those days, I had a tendency to melt down faster than a half pound of raclette at a boogie Brooklyn dinner party. What's a raclette? I now have two words to look up: vuvuzela and raclette. So, yeah, in those days, I had a tendency to melt down faster, etc., making all of the shit I had to do far more difficult and anxiety inducing than it needed to be. Two steps forward, one step back. All the damn time. Something had to give, but I didn't know what or how to give it, which brings us to that tranquil fishing village in the north coast of the Dominican Republic. 3 years ago, I moved to a place where you might as well abandon planning altogether. Here, the tropical weather shifts faster than the real housewives' loyalties. Stores close for unspecified periods of time on random days of the week, and the guy who is due to fix the roof mañana is just as likely to arrive a week from mañana. Possibly because of thunderstorms or because he couldn't buy the materials he needed from the hardware store that is only periodically and inconsistently open. Or both. Or neither. Who knows? Caribbean life may look seductively slow-paced and groovy when you've called in sick from your demanding job to lie on the couch binging on chicken soup and HGTV, and in lots of ways it is. I am not complaining. But it can also be frustrating for us who thrive on reliability and structure, or who don't deal particularly well with the unexpected. Sounds like me. After a few weeks of hanging out in Hispaniola, I began to realize that if I clung to my old ways in our new life, I would wind up in a perpetual panic about something, because nothing goes according to plan around here, and that would negate the entire purpose of having gotten the hell out of New York in the first place. So for me, landing in the DR was a shot of exposure therapy with a coconut rum chaser. I've been forced to relax and go with the flow, which has done wonders for my attitude and my Xanax supply. Again, not complaining. We have a few more pages to go. But through observation and practice, I've also determined that one doesn't need to uproot to an island in the middle of the Atlantic to calm the F down. Anyone can do it, including you. You just need to shift your mindset, like I did, to react to problems in a different way. In doing so, you'll also learn that you actually can prepare for the unexpected. Which helps a lot with the whole one step back thing. How's that possible? Would preparing for every potential outcome drive you crazy in a totally different way? Well, yes, it would. But I'm not talking about securing multiple locations for your husband's 30th birthday party, because what if it rains, or preparing 3 different versions of pie chart and more of a bar graph mood that day, or erecting a complicated system of moats around your property, because what if your neighbor's frisky cows get loose someday? That could definitely drive you crazy in a different way, and possibly to bankruptcy. I'm talking about preparing mentally. That's what this book helps you do, so that when shit happens, you'll have the tools to handle it. Whoever you are, wherever you live, and whenever things get hairy. You need to get the small drink. Yeah. I didn't realize reading takes this long. So yeah, that is what this book helps you to. Psst. That's what we in the biz call foreshadowing. A few months ago, after a pleasant night out at a local tiki bar, my husband and I arrived home to an unexpected visitor. I had opened our gate and was slowly picking my way across the flagstone path to our deck. It was dark, I was tipsy, when a larger than usual leaf caught my eye. It seemed to me to be not so much fluttering on the breeze as scuttling on it. A quick beam of my iPhone flashlight confirmed that the presumptive almond leaf was in fact a tarantula the size of a honeydew lemon. Scary. Yep, I'll give you a moment to recover. Lord knows I needed one, and if you play Animal Crossing, that's probably the ratio. You know, your avatar to that honeydew melon sized tarantula. Now, assuming you haven't thrown the book across the room in disgust, or that you have at least picked it back up, may I continue? Having previously declared my intention to burn the mother effing down if we ever spotted such a creature in our house, I was faced with a quandary. By this time, I had grown fond of my house, and technically, the creature was not in it, just near it. What to do? Stand frozen in place until the thing wandered back to the unknowable depths from whence it came? Sleep with one eye open for eternity? Politely ask the tarantula to skedaddle? None of those were realistic options. As it turned out, apart from shouting at my husband to please come deal with that tarantula, there wasn't much I could do. We live in the jungle, baby, and no matter how many real estate agents and fellow expats had told us those guys stay up in the mountains, you'll never see one, there was no denying the seven-legged fact that one had found its way to our humble sea-level abode. Yes, we read that correctly. This gent was missing one of his furry little limbs, a fact will become later important in the story. What we did do was this. My husband grabbed a broom and used it to guide the uninvited guest off our property and into the neighbor's bushes, and I and I fled into the house muttering, "Everything is a tarantula," under my breath until I was safely upstairs and sufficiently drugged to sleep. It wasn't totally calming the F down, but it was a step in the right direction. The next morning, we got up early to go on an all-day rum-guzzling boat trip with some friends. I know. I staggered downstairs in a pre-8 a.m. haze, and as I turned at the landing toward the bottom of the stairs, I saw it. Hiding behind the floor-length curtain in the living room was the very same tarantula that had previously been shooed a good 100 feet away from its current position. I knew it was the same one because it only had 7 legs. And lest you think I got close enough to count them, I will remind you that this spider was so effing big, you did not have to get close to it to count its legs. With which it had, overnight, crossed an expanse of grass, climbed back up onto the deck, and then climbed again up to the terrace, and squeezed in between the cracks of our sliding doors to get inside the house. I know what you're thinking. This is when you burn the down, right? And yes, my instinctive reaction was, I can't deal with this. But you know what? Upon second viewing, the tarantula was not so bad. Or rather, it was still bad, but I was better. If we'd found a spider like that inside their Brooklyn apartment, I would have lit a match right then and there. But now it seemed I'd been trained by all those unpredictable monsoon rains and unreliable roof guys. Expect the unexpected. Nothing goes according to plan. Surprise! From our practice run the night before, I knew it wasn't going to move very fast or start growling at me. Oh wow, they don't do that in real life. And I had to admit that the honeydew-sized spider operating on one leg short was a lot smaller and less nimble than a 5-foot-tall person with both her legs intact. Turns out that exposure therapy is clinically sanctioned for a reason. By activating the logical part of my brain, I was able to one-up that instinctive, I can't deal with this, with a more productive, okay well, what are we going to do about this because I have a boat to catch and vast quantities of rum to imbibe. This was no time for hysterics. Freaking out was not going to solve the problem. Recall, if you would, my jacked up version of the Serenity Prayer. Acknowledge what has happened. A tarantula is in my house. Accept what you can't control. Tarantulas can get into my house. Address what you can't control. Get the tarantula out of my house. I had officially calmed the F down, now it was time to deal with it. Fine, it was time for my husband to deal with it. I helped. Using an empty plastic pitcher, a broom, a piece of cardboard, and nerves of steel, he trapped the thing humanely and secured it on the dining table while I rounded up sunscreen, towels, portable speakers, and an extra pint of Barcello because last time the boat captain underestimated. And really, who wants to hang out on a deserted beach with an infinite supply of coconuts and a finite supply of rum? You can control the rum. Then we drove a mile down the road with our new pal, Lucky, ensconced in his plastic jug. Lucky is the tarantula. Released the wayward spider into a vacant lot and boarded the SS Mama Needs Her Juice. So what do my newfound Caribbean calm and tales of Tarantulian daring have to do with acknowledging, accepting, and addressing your overreactive what-ifs, worries, anxieties, and freakouts? A fair question. In addition to spending many years as a professional worrier, I am currently a professional writer of self-help books, including The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck, Get Your Shit Together, and You Do You. Each has recounted aspects of my personal trek toward becoming a happier and mentally healthier person, combined with practical, profanity-riddled tips regarding accomplishing same. They call me the anti-guru. Not gonna lie, it's a pretty sweet gig. Collectively, the NFGGs, No F's Given Guides, for short, NFGG, have helped millions of people cast off burdensome obligations, organize their lives, and be their authentic selves. If you are one of those people, I want to thank you for enabling this super sweet gig. If you're new to the party, welcome, and sorry about the spider stuff. I know that was off-putting, but the NFGGs are like that sometimes. You'll get used to it. Anyway, I'm glad you're here, and between us, I believe you are holding in your hands the most useful NF Given Guide of them all, since, as I think we've agreed, everyone has problems. That's right, you cannot get through life without shit happening to you, but also herewith a manual for learning how to cope. In the Calm the F Down, you'll learn about the 4 phases of freaking out and their flip sides, managing your freakout funds, mental decluttering, the one question to rule them all, how to sort your problems by probability and prioritize them by urgency, sleight of mind, ostrich mode and how to avoid it, productive, helpful, effective worrying, PHEW, the 3 principles of dealing with it, RIOs, realistic ideal outcomes, and much, much more. So if you're like me, if you've ever thought, I can't deal with this shit, or if you're asking what if more often than you ought to be, worrying too much, freaking out too often, and wasting time and energy obsessing over things you can't control, I can help. Remember, I'm not here to invalidate or minimize your anxiety or your problems. I just want to assist you in dealing with them, and calming the F down is the first step. Along the way, I swear I will never tell you everything's going to be okay, or push the narrative that it's not so bad. Whatever is going on in your life sucks as hard as you think it does. No arguments here. But I will say this. I am 100% positive that if I can spend 10 minutes in a car with the tarantula on my lap, you can calm the F down and deal with your shit too. That's only the introduction. I didn't really think this few pages will take this long to read, but if you made it to the end, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you still hang out with me as we read this book together. So yeah, the video is already long enough. Again, thank you so much. This has been Elle. I will see you in the next episode. Bye!